Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for the warm welcome. And there's 167 people on the call. That's fantastic. There's obviously a lot of people
I just noticed that.
Interested in this. That's phenomenal. So thank you very much for having me, everybody. I'll try to keep this somewhat informative and entertaining. And hopefully you'll come away with this knowing a little bit more about at least what I think about the FDP, if not anything else. So I'm just gonna give it a bit of an introduction about me. So this is me bragging. So I'm head of intelligence and analytics at Sherwood Forest Hospitals. I've been in the NHS in various analytical BI leadership roles across acutes, CSUs, commissioning, CCGs when they were a thing. I was even in a PCT when it was a thing, just before it transitioned over. So that's gives a clue as to my age. So I've done a few things. I've been an analyst. I've been an analyst doing performance when it was just about shuffling data between spreadsheets, which was very boring. And very quickly tried to get into doing something a bit more interesting or something I thought was a bit more valuable in terms of advising people about the best ways to use data and things like that. I've been in various leadership roles. I've led a data engineering team. I developed a cloud-based data platform in one of the Greater Manchester trusts, which I still bear the scars from today. I've been through the NHS Digital Academy, talking about bearing scars. There's a lot of those there as well. I'm a very proud member of AFA. I think AFA's fantastic. It's great to have that kind of network and professional body. And I did professional registration through that route as well. I'm a big advocate for making sure analysts or trying to add credibility to our profession as much as we possibly can. And I think professional registration is a really good way to do that. So please get professionally registered and go down that route if you haven't already. And I'm a part of the CDAO network, which if anybody's read anything about the FDP, you might come across some little letters that were written a few months ago about that, which I might talk about a little bit later. Bit of small print. For one, I'm not an absolute expert in this. I don't work for Palantir and I don't work for NHS England, so please don't throw anything at me. They're not paying me for any of this. These views are my own. I'm not going to discuss opinions about Palantir, politics or morality, so don't ask. These are my opinions. Obviously, everybody's entitled to theirs. It probably won't answer everybody's questions, but what I would suggest for people to do is please stay curious and try and find things out for yourselves. Don't believe everything you read or hear, and test things out for yourselves. I think it's so easy, especially with the amount of information available to us these days and press and everything else, just to go along with whatever the prevailing opinion is. I think people should be curious and things like that. And as analysts, I think we should absolutely be championing that viewpoint as well. What you can expect from me, honestly, I will tell you what I think. I'll give you my personal experience, and I am relentlessly optimistic, which is a viewpoint I hold. And that for me doesn't mean just believing that everything will be okay, don't worry about it. It's very much thinking, what's in our gift to do something about? How can we make positive change happen? What do we want to happen, and how do we get there? That's what that's about for me. So that's what you can expect from me. So a couple of things around why I think the FDP or a federated data platform, a data platform that's bigger than an individual trust data platform or whatever is needed. So as I mentioned, I used to lead the data engineering team, and these are some quotes that I have heard and potentially said about data platforms being in that kind of position. So things like, can't do anything about that. We haven't got that data in the data warehouse yet. Can't analyze that. We're out of capacity. If we only had 2 more data engineers, can we just create a separate database over here for these individuals, just to store my own little bit of analysis in, rather than using what's in the middle. don't have any DBAs, version of SQL's unsupported. You know, people break things every time they make a change in the hospital, that it breaks the entire data platform. Systems don't talk to each other, of course, that's a big one, isn't it? You know, people don't understand how complex the data is. The data warehouse has failed again this morning. That used to happen a lot to me, which was always a joyous time. People aren't sure which table to use. We've got 6 that all say the same thing, but they're all different. Or maybe they all say something slightly different, but they're also supposed to be the same. That's another one. A lot of the codes are black box. How many times have we had a contractor come in, build something, and then disappear into the, you know, having taken a load of taxpayers' money and not left us with any documentation or any kind of insight as to how the thing might work, and we've got to support it. We get blamed when the data is wrong, but it's bad at the source. Any of that sound familiar to anybody? Just give me. I'm staring a lot of bubbles on the screen with people's initials on, so just give us like a wave or something, or a hand up or something like that if you think that this is familiar, because I think just want to make sure that everybody's listening. Yeah, I'm getting a few thumbs up there. So these are all things, and as analysts, I mean, other data professionals are available as well, but as analysts, as an analyst, I think one of the issues I think is that all of this stuff speaks to the foundation of where our data is. Why are we here then? So, well, we've got lots of local autonomy, so lots of trusts and other organisations have bought fragmented, siloed systems. Anybody got any shadow IT in their organisations? You know, somebody, a consultant or an exec's had a pen at a conference, and suddenly you're in a contract with a new supplier with a database you can't get to, that kind of thing. There's no real national common data model. There have been stabs at this in the past. There's a massive workforce and skill knowledge disparity. So different trusts have got very different levels of skill, different organizations. Some have got really good data science teams. Some haven't even heard of the words data science in the same sentence. And it's not their fault. It's just that that's how their organizations decided to invest. And as a result, we get a lot of these outcomes where you don't have the joint of decision making you want. You've got a lot of waste and duplication. You've got bad data quality. You ultimately have worse patient outcomes. My point is this: foundations are really, really important in everything. Obviously, buildings is one, but also in data. You can't build a mansion on the foundations that were laid for a beach hut. It's just not possible. You have to have your foundation is a rate limiting factor in your ability to do stuff. So if our analytics aspires to be like a mansion and have lots and lots of things available to people, but we've only invested in and built a foundation for a beach hut, we're going to have problems. And I think that's where we get a lot of those issues. So in my kind of quest to try to build a data platform from scratch in a previous role, I did a lot of soul searching on this and said, well, what's wrong with most of our data platforms then? What leads us to those bad outcomes and those problems that we see? And this is a maybe not exhaustive list, but it's a list of those things. So for a start, they're fragile, so they're easily broken. So erroneous data or changes or people or whatever, you know, touches this thing and it breaks. They tend to be very system centric, so they perpetuate siloed data. We've already got our data in lots of silos in lots of systems, but we then build our data warehouse to have that. There's tables that are just about those systems, not about the, you know, the entities that they serve, but within the systems themselves. Analysts and data professionals need to spend a lot of time wrangling the data. You know, I find that a lot of data platforms start with really good intentions, but then somebody says, can you just do this? And you end up with another table that doesn't make any sense only to that use case. And that spirals out of control, and you end up with lots of technical debt, and that adds all of those factors in as well. Often limited to what our IT departments can provide. So sometimes our IT departments have got, you know, we've got a number of servers that we can use, and that's it. it's not particularly scalable. Sometimes there's not great amounts of resource to tap into, and also there's this issue of being able to share data or move data beyond its sort of where it sits, which has created a lot of problems, I think, with lots and lots of portals for us to submit data to via NHS England and that sort of thing. And so there's the same data existing in lots of different places, which can be a problem. So the counter of this is sort of my checklist for what does a data platform need to be to address those issues. And I'm not going to go through everything in this list, but effectively it would be that kind of stable, scalable, secure is a given. You've got to have stability in your data. It should be thematic rather than being siloed. So it should be about that you should have one patient table, for example. It should be that's it. You shouldn't have multiples of the same thing. You should be able to then join that data across and see a patient pathway very easily, bringing that data across lots of different systems. It should be able to handle changes. It should let analysts be analysts. So analysts shouldn't have to spend their time wrangling data. They should be able to use that data, look at that data, analyze it, talk to people about it, suggest how services can improve, how clinicians can improve patient care, be able to pull that intelligence together in a way that works and do it quickly without having to spend their time wrangling that data in the first place. Should enable advanced analytics. This was a big thing for me. Data scientists, I love data scientists. I think that data science is a superpower that we should be really leaning into. But a lot of data science happens on an individual's laptop, and the outputs exist on an individual's laptop and don't then get integrated into the wider data platform. And I think that's a problem. So I think any data platform that we've got should enable that data science to be productionized and to be able to reuse those things. And really talking about those reproducible analytical pipelines that Ben Goldacre wrote about. We should have transparent data lineage. The amount of times where I've had analysts say to me, "Yeah, I've got no idea where that data's come from, or what process it's gone through, or what logic's been applied to it, from its source through to the layer that analysts might have access to." So really, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to integrate the ability to interact with data beyond just the initial kind of consumption of data. And what I mean by that is we need to be able to have a platform where we can share data with other organizations securely but easily as well, so we don't create lots of extra technical debt around the systems. That's my checklist. So by those standards, and I'm going to just jump to my sort of initial conclusion, which is like, by those standards, FDP is a really, really good data platform, because for me it hits all of those things. It has the capability of doing all of those things. So out of the gate, the technology has that, and that's why I'm fairly enthusiastic about it. I will also add some of the counter to that in a minute. Just going back though, and some people here might be thinking, well, I don't even know what FDP is. So now you know why we might need it. Here, this is what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be a common set of technology, a common data model, and a common tool set, and it's supposed to reduce the barriers to entry for the workforce. So it's supposed to democratize some of the skills that are needed. So you don't have to be an expert in SQL to be able to extract data, for example. You can use a GUI or something like that as well if you want to. Ability to be able to share data safely and securely between organizations, obviously where it's legal and appropriate to do so. That's what it's supposed to be about. So there's a couple of elements to this. Well, there's a technical infrastructure, and apologies if this gets in the weeds a little bit. I'll try not to go too deep into it, but it's based on AWS. So it's effectively, its foundation is Amazon Web Services. It's hugely scalable resource. It predominantly uses file storage and technology called Apache Spark or Apache Data Fusion, which is just a set of technologies that are fairly open source. Actually, they're standard in any platform as a service offering from a cloud provider. And if you know how to use them, you'll know that they're incredibly powerful. The it's all split by tenant. So each organization who signs up to the FDP gets its own tenant, which means it's all in the same data center, but there are boundaries in terms of access. So only people from that organization who are granted access can access any of the data. Other organisations, including NHS England, Palantir themselves, from a wider perspective, can't access the data unless they have specific permissions to do so in the tenant, and that's all governed. That's kind of the foundation of technology that it's based on. You can do a lot with that technology. There are the whole data platforms that are built on that and have been built from scratch. The data platform I was building in Greater Manchester was based on some of that same kind of technology. The problem with that, though, is that you've got to know exactly how to architect and configure it. And that's where the next bit comes in, which is Palantir. And Palantir's Foundry is a technology that sits on top of that foundational stuff and orchestrates it. So the data exists in file storage, for example. Foundry basically tells the Spark and Data Fusion compute what to do with it and how to process it. It also provides a graphical user interface for building tools. You may have come across some of the national products that are on FDP. They're all built within Foundry, and effectively they're just front end uses of the data and ways to expose the data and interact with it. But there's other tools in there for managing data flows, building and deploying models as well. So data science models, there's a really good set of tools in there for putting models in, for kind of competing them and doing the analysis on what which models are performing the best, and then being able to deploy those things. You can go into the weeds in terms of continuous integration, continuous deployment, and things like that as well. But these are all capabilities that are, these are the things that I think make this a good platform. I'm not going to go into loads of detail about this slide. This is something that Palantir gave me around, the various things that the various technologies that are in there. But basically, it's based around this set of things. The other things are peripheral and are tools for doing things with the data, like visualizing it or building an application of it. But the actual kind of core of the platform is these things. So it's the integration. They use something called an ontology, which is sort of a semantic layer of data, which people might be familiar with if they've used Power BI or those kind of technologies. That you create a semantic layer that kind of unsilos the data from its system, its source systems, and it brings it together into this kind of model that is sort of almost a digital twin of your hospital or your ICB or whatever it is. The canonical data model is also sort of how that that's the standardization across NHS organizations. So there's a canonical data model that's been developed. It is open source. I believe there's a GitHub page for it. People can go and look at it to tell you effectively what the canonical data model is. So effectively that is sort of a standard NHS ontology that describes how the data should link to what the data definition should be and how they should link together. Beyond the canonical data model isn't exactly complete yet. What we're finding is that there's a lot of gaps from a local perspective, but it's being built and developed all the time. This is sort of an iterative process. So there's many of us who are getting involved in advising on what the developments of the canonical data model should look like in the future as well. There's the program element, so that's the technology element. The program element, so the program began 2023, I believe. Its initial focus has been on sort of operational products for acute providers, and that has been a point of contention because it's a data platform. So why is it just a set of products that people could work with, just like any other type of product that helps you deal with your theatres or your RTT or cancer patients or things like that. Its initial focus, I think, was about trying to actually get it off the ground and deliver value quickly. So we've seen versions of national platforms talked about in the past, and they've tended to fail before they've even started. So with this, there's definite benefits being realized early on, but that's because they've effectively narrowed the scope initially and deployed some products that people can use off the back of it. The issue with that is if you stay there, then all it becomes is a product and not an actual platform. And I think that's where I was with this, is in terms of what I wouldn't actually engage with the FDP until they allowed us to do more with it than just take the products. I wanted my data engineers, data scientists, data analysts to be able to see what was under the bonnet and actually be able to develop on it themselves, as well as being able to take and take the advantage of the products that were available. So that has been a more recent development, ability to use for trust to use FTP as their main platform, and it's all been around voluntary adoption. So you can take it, you don't have to take it. The national planning guidance seems to suggest that it's a little bit more mandatory than it was before. But I think how much of the platform is used, etc., is still very much, you can do what you want on it effectively. You can use it as your entire data platform and take every single product, or you could just use it to do some national submissions, that sort of thing. And everything else in between. There are incubator sites, so there's sites, there are trusts and organisations who have gone further with this, who NHS England and Palantir tend to approach to talk about development and to test products and things like that. They are talking about things like rolling out to other organisations, mental health, community, ambulance trusts, and other providers as well. And the programme was funded nationally for 7 years initially. What happens after that, we're not 100% sure yet. So another element is federated data. So what's that all about? Well, having the benefits of being on a single platform is that it's all the data is in the same data center, and all of the boundaries between that data are logical. So all it really requires is changing of permissions to be able to expose data to other organizations with other tenants in the same platform. Obviously, there are a lot of guardrails around this, but it means that we would be able to theoretically share data easier between organizations. For example, between trusts and NHS England, where there's usually a lot of submissions made via a lot of different portals, some of which you're only allowed one user per organisation, which is horrendous. Horrendous, especially if that person's on holiday when submission's needed. So this would, in theory, reduce a lot of that burden, because effectively, if we've all got all of our data, we've got it all packaged up in the right format, and we just give NHS England permission to see that element of our data, then they can effectively self-serve all the submissions from there. It stops us having to spend the time manually having to fill in lots of templates and things like that, which is hopefully music to people's ears when it comes to analytics, because I know as an analyst, it was always the pain of my existence to have to fill in a new template from NHS England, because they were usually terrible. Apologies to any NHS England people on the call, by the way. I'm giving you a really hard time. But yeah, there's definitely these things that have burdened us in the past that I think we could be spending this time doing much more valuable stuff. It also enables us to do things like have potentially shared PTLs between trusts. That's some of the use cases that we're exploring at the moment in our health economy is around figuring out how do we get the benefit of doing, seeing some of this data across providers, especially where we've already got things like joined up MDTs for cancer patients, things like that. If we could share this data more readily, then we'll be able to get it in the hands of the people who really need it and be able to make a difference for our patients. One of the things that we've done recently as well is that there's the cost collection. I don't know if anybody on the call is involved in finance at all, but there's national and local cost collections that happen, and they're quite burdensome generally in terms of templates and stuff like that. So we've been involved in a pilot to help to do this over FTP, and the team who are involved in it have been really, really happy with the process. It's been far easier than anything usually is. and that sort of good stuff. So there's a lot of benefits from a federated data perspective. The other one is sort of innovation. So I mentioned wraps earlier, and that. So obviously having a common data model means we can share code, we can share solutions across organizations and deploy them into different tenants. If everybody's using the same data model, then minimal re-engineering would need to take place. So if I've created a DNA prediction model, and my counterpart in Wigan or St Helens or somewhere else in the country wants to make use of that, then they should be able to do that, because we've got the same common data model that we're applying it to, and the same set of tools that we're developing them as well. And that, so it allows for that sort of thing. Also allows for cross-organization collaboration on products and other projects. There's some stuff that we're doing in the East Midlands at the moment, where we're working with some of our other acute trust sort of neighbours on products and various projects. So some of it's national submission based, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's lots of stuff going on there. Also, there's a marketplace of products which is emerging as well, which I don't know as much about. My sort of opinions then. So I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but the good, it's a great foundation. Ticks all the boxes for me from a good data platform perspective. Allows us to have standards, etc. It does reduce the barriers to entry, that sort of thing. Big thing is it raises the floor, so it means trusts in organisations who don't have super advanced data platforms or haven't maybe invested in those could get the benefits of having that kind of thing out of the gate, which is really good. Lessons learned. So the bad, there hasn't been great engagement with the data analytics professionals across the country on this, and that's changing following the CDAO letters and some of the conversations that we've been having as a network with Ming and IOB and Rebecca and people like that. Focus on operational products means it could be seen as and has been seen as a black box. Obviously, vendor lock-in is something that gets talked about a lot. So Palantir's operating system is the thing that's being used at the moment. But I think that would be that would always be the problem. So no matter who got awarded the contract, you probably have an element of that happen. If Microsoft got that, you'd be stuck with the Microsoft tools, etc. Nothing against Microsoft. I love them dearly as well. There's a lot of assumptions though with this. So there's a lot of assumptions on the program. I think that people will be really happy and embrace this, and I don't think that's been the case for a number of reasons. But I think that's something that there's been maybe some hubris in the program around it. And then some unknowns. So obviously the funding, we don't know exactly what will happen with funding following that 7-year contract. I know we know it's in the 10-year plan, we know it's in the national planning guidance, so we know it's going to stick around in some form or another, but we just don't know how it will be funded. Don't know what the onward strategy for mandating will be. That's become a little bit clearer in the latest planning guidance, but it's still a bit up in the air. And then future cost of ownership for organisations linked to the funding as well. We don't know about that. There's probably others that I haven't thought about, but there you go. I've got a couple of things about how it could potentially help a health economy, but this is a bit more high level. And I just pasted in the achievements for so far that the program's published on their site. But you can see that this is largely off the operational products. I think there's a long way to go with this, but I've seen that firsthand that there's operational benefits to this in our own trust. We've seen a few patients we've just had Cancer 360 go live, and we've identified patients from that our normal PTL process would have missed in terms of being able to actually expedite care. And so we were actually treating patients earlier than we would have done otherwise, which is great from a cancer perspective, because obviously with cancer, every minute counts. So I've seen some really good benefit from it so far. That's my musings on it. So they're my opinions, they're my thoughts, and I hope that's been somewhat insightful or useful, and you've gone away with something you didn't know before on that. But happy to take any questions or comments or concerns.
Thanks, Matt. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed sort of hearing your insights and sort of pulling it all together in the way that you have. And I fully understand FTP and what it means. I don't, but this has helped. There's quite a few questions. Before I go to the ones which have been shared on Slido, I'll share my screen in a mo. There's a couple of people in the room who've got their hands up. So we can oh, Matt's taken a call. He says he's busy entertaining hundreds of people, so he needs to get back in the room. So Kat, you're the first to get your hand up. What's your query, your question for Matt?
Thank you for that, Rachel, and thank you, Matthew. My question is, you mentioned about ethics, and I wonder about the separation between ethics in healthcare and tech, because we're moving into very much a tech era. And I suppose I wouldn't want a surgeon who's a serial killer who is still allowed to work as a surgeon just because they have the skills. So I wonder about ethics of Palantir. Can this be done, built homegrown, without using a company that openly supports and is complicit in a genocide, would be my question. Thank you.
That's an easy one to start with, Matt. Before you answer that,
data wrangling. This is when we should be doing analysis and communication.
Sorry, I think there's somebody.
That's what I want to get to. That's what I want to get to.
Okay. Can you just, if you're not talking or invited to talk, so we can sort of get through our questions, can we just get yourself muted? I'll just say, Matt, there's probably a group of questions on Slido and possibly people in the room as well, which are around that. So there's probably a few strong opinions, I think, about sort of Palantir and sort of that. I was hoping to avoid that, I must say today. I kind of wanted to see, but I'll leave it to you. What are your thoughts?
So I'll just remind people I did open with I'm not going to be discussing sort of the ethics and morality and things like that. As far as I'm concerned, I will say this: the provider for this, at least for this part of the FDP journey for the NHS, has been chosen, and we have a contract with Palantir. I think I'm looking at it purely from a tech point of view, and the Foundry operating system is incredible from a data platform perspective. It's an incredible set of tools. It ticks all of the boxes from what I would consider to be a good data platform. Could this be done by another means? Sure, I've done it in another trust before. What I would say is trying to get there was ridiculously hard work, and this has got a lot of what I was trying to build on there out the gate. So from a technology point of view, I like I say that's kind of how I'm approaching this. Should we be trying to take advantage of the best technology we can for the benefit of patients? I think if it's made available to us, and we should leverage all the things that we can in terms of the taxpayers' money is being spent on this. So if we've got an opportunity to improve patients' lives and outcomes as a result of this, we should be using all the tools at our disposal to do that. I won't go into any more detail about what I personally think about any company involved. But obviously everybody's entitled to their own opinions on that.
Thanks, Matt. So before I think so, if we can just sort of so my new rule is we've covered that. So let's talk about how we can use FDP positively. Let's see. I'm going to take a question from Slido. I won't share my screen, and then I'll come back to maybe Siva in the room as well. So one of the I think you've probably addressed this one. So one of them is does the FDP allow for the use of open source tools?
Yes. So there's a yes and a no in that in a way. So obviously it's based on Foundry, which is got a number of tools within it. So some of the stuff that you can do, for example, is you can write SQL within it. SQL is obviously open source. You can write Python code within it. You can do a number of different things with those kind of things. It's obviously built on open source type tools with Apache Spark and that sort of stuff. Not that you can't really get to the Apache Spark stuff and hack that, but you can do that sort of thing. I was at a Build with FTP event a few weeks ago, and other organisations were in the room as well. So Databricks and AWS were both there, and they were working with Palantir at that time and NHS England colleagues to look at how do they federate data between platforms. So if you've already got a Databricks platform, for example, how do you use the FTP and your Databricks platform and interact with both? Because you might not want FTP to be your primary data platform, but you might want to take advantage of some of its capabilities. So, and you might need to in the future as well. So it's about that sort of thing. So there's definitely an interoperability coming. Open source tools. So yeah, there's a limited number of open source tools that you can use in there. What I would say as well is that it might touch on the things that are coming up, but I know there's been some potential concerns that sort of GUI based nature of things might de-skill people or that kind of thing. I'd say the amount of technology that I've seen in that platform and the amount of capabilities in it, I don't see that as an issue. I think good data engineering is good data engineering, and those principles are cross-platform. So good data engineering in Foundry is good data engineering in Azure Data Factory or the equivalent in AWS, or whatever it is that you're using. It's application of the tools that you've got available to you. I think good data visualization is good data visualization, regardless of whether it's Power BI, Tableau, or the tools that are in Foundry. It's the same kind of thing. So yeah, open source tools, yes, you can use some of the open source tools that people are familiar with and versions of them. And there's some interoperability. So if you've already got some of those open source tools, you can there are ways to work between the two.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So let's take a question from someone who's in the room. I know you're all in the room. I don't know why I'm using that phraseology. I've got a Christmas jumper on. I can say and do anything. So Siva, you have a question.
Hi, I'll make it short, actually. So can FTP help, submitting those NHS England returns by providers or weekly, monthly reporting? Can this actually eliminate that function so that it's all electronically available at the moment with FTP? So is that a possibility for that, or any future plans for it?
I think I know that there are future plans for it. So this is what I've been told by NHS England. I will just reiterate my initial thing as well, is that I don't work for NHS England, the FTP team, or Palantir. So that's just another disclaimer. But conversations with them, we're actively working on trying to get as many of our returns the ability to get them submitted by the FTP as possible. I've been talking to the national team about it, and they're really keen to make that happen. One of our local trusts, Leicester and Northampton, are currently working with the FTP team to pilot some of that as well. So obviously some of this stuff needs to be tested. It needs to then be deployed into people's tenants when it's ready, and that. So I think I think the FTP roadmap, if I remember rightly, said 2027 as a timeline for having all the national reporting done over FTP. I for one cannot wait for that to happen, because the process of manually submitting data is
a big burden,
massive waste on analytical time, and we could be spending our time adding so much more value than that. And so I think anything that helps us do that is a massive benefit. We are working to try and do that. The more people who can put a bit of pressure on their local FTP and NHS England teams to speed that up, I think the better, because at the moment they're focused very much on operational products. If they could shift some of that resource and some of that sort of focus to national returns, there's an enormous amount of benefit we could realise. I'm pushing for it. More people who can get involved and get enthusiastic about it, and then try and encourage them to move in that direction, the better for me.
Absolutely spot on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Matt. So I'm doing a brilliant job at hosting and picking questions left, right, and centre. So I'm now going to go to the chat, because I've just seen one appear there. There was one earlier, but can you see the chat, Matt? There's
I can't. No, I'm not privileged to see the chat.
So I now wish, Peter, you'd done this in a in shorthand, but I'm going to read it out anyway. So Peter says, so that's Peter Spilsbury says, how is the quality of analytical products or models that go on to the platform assessed? And then I can leave it like that, or I can go on to say that he says, actually, Peter, are you in the room? Are you in the room? Are you on a? If you're able to talk, it might be easier for you to sort of talk to that one. I've put him on the spot. I've got the sack. Never mind. I'll read it in full.
I'm here. No, I am here. Sorry, I couldn't get my microphone to go on. Sorry.
Oh, that was a hacker moment, wasn't it?
Is that we're going to call it there?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Yes.
Peter.
Hi, Matt. That's been really interesting. Thank you. This could be a question born out of complete ignorance, but if we're going to create a national platform and we're going to put analytical models on it and tools that people can use, I don't know, I'm just imagining a tool people could use to work out how changes in demographics might impact on demand. There are good ways of doing that and there are less good ways of doing it. But by putting something on a national platform, we're kind of validating it as being good. So I'm interested to know what the quality, how are we making that judgment, and how do we make sure that the tools that go on this thing are state of the art, appropriate, use the best methods?
That's a good question. I think so. There's a couple of things. So one, I'll just talk to the kind of, I mentioned data science tools and models and things like that. So it's got the platform's got the capability of being able to write models and deploy them into the platform and use the technology for that. One of the tools that Foundry has is got the ability to then do all of the analytics that you would require around a data science model. So being able to generate your AUC and be able to visualize ROC curves and things like that, and that kind of thing. And then you can compete models to see what's the most, which models, performs the best from the statistical point of view. So that's sort of, normally data scientists and researchers would have to generate a lot of that sort of content themselves. This stuff, there's some tools in the box that allow you to do that, that sort of almost as standard. So you could standardize those kind of practices. When we're talking about then sort of publishing things nationally or sharing them nationally, I think that, and again, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not sure how much the thinking's evolved from a national point of view on how this works, but I think there's a gap in this at the moment. So like I say, the operational tools at the moment are very much a case of here's your RTT PTL and here's some functionality that you can do with that. There's not as much analytics output in that yet. And I think there's a massive space for analysts to get involved in assuring the quality of what goes in there in the future. I don't think that's been filled yet, personally, and I think that's something I think the CDO network, strategy unit, others would be in a really good place to do. I don't think that we should be just taking NHS England or Palantir's word for it when it comes to sort of a RAP or something like that. That whether that's should be a national standard. I think that there's probably space for a quality assurance sort of process that involves experts like we've built in the NHS over the last 20 years, and people like say the strat unit, Andy's team, the health economics unit, there's various teams across the country, and like say CDO network and Alpha, people like that might be in a good place to support this sort of stuff. And this is, I say, a limitation of it at the moment, but I don't think it's an insurmountable one. I don't think anything's set in stone with this. So I think that that's absolutely the right thing to be called out to say, actually, how do we have a national kind of quality assurance process for things that are nationally published? Locally, you can do that sort of stuff yourself with the tools that are in the box to a degree. And I think people should be applying that same rigor as they should be to their own analytics internally. But when it comes to the national thing, I think there's a space for kind of that to exist that I don't think does at the moment. I could be wrong. They could be sat on something amazing, but I haven't heard about it.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Matt. So I've got a couple more questions with people with their hands up, and I think I've probably got time for two more. And your voice is holding out nicely, Matt. And although I can't hear him, and I would say that we probably won't get through all the questions. So, and I know you've said that you're not busy at all over the next few weeks, and what you'd rather be doing is answering questions that we aren't able to answer during the session. So I'll take you up on that. I don't think that's actually what you said. Anyway, so the next question is Jeremy. Jeremy, have you got a question for Matt?
Yes, hi Matt. We're just starting our FTP journey. I work for an ICB in London, and we've got a fairly good Snowflake environment, which is very quite mature. We've used Microsoft SQL in the past. One question for you is, how different is the FTP experience in working with code? And secondly, as an ICB, we're obviously being restructured. And a lot of staff we're going to have to shift the weight over. So again, how flexible do you find the FTP for putting data out or connecting to data? So we've got quite a bit of Power BI skills, and we're going to be working on an SCC project. We need the dashboards up and running, but potentially we've got nobody with FTP experience to cover that off, and we need dashboards by April. So lots of Power BI type experience, but kind of find the way through the art of the doable.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's so a couple of things. I think so. I mentioned about that there are sort of the ability to work with kind of code and open source stuff in there. Foundry is different. I'll give it that. It's not. It's been engineered in a particular way. There's different tools in there that look a certain way. So there's always going to be a learning curve to that. You know, as anybody who picks up Power BI for the very first time has got a massive learning curve ahead of them as well. And you know, same with anything, they develop their GUIs to be slightly different and all of that sort of stuff. So I would say that there's quite a wealth of training material available to people on that journey at the moment. Our teams have found that quite useful. What I found is that the Palantir staff are really supportive as well. So they always are happy to answer lots of questions. My data engineering team and analytics team are going through training at the moment, and where they're finding gaps in either the gaps in the training or that they want advice about how to apply that to our local data and things like that, they've been quite helpful. When it comes to kind of connecting to other things, so we've got an extensive Power BI dashboard, sort of well-established Power BI suite of dashboards that are embedded in our intranet and our SharePoint, which we're not looking to get rid of anytime soon. So I'm not looking to move the entire organization onto FTP from a visualization perspective. But what we've done in the FTP is create data sets that we've then been able to point Power BI to. So we've got a sort of single version of the truth between the two things. And that's absolutely possible. So we've also managed to get same kind of thing happening with SQL Server Management Studio as well. So you can write your SQL and query data sets that exist in Foundry as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do from that perspective. I know other data visualization platforms are available. I'm just using our example there, but it's these things are available. You just got to talk to Palantir and NHS England about possibilities, and we've found them very accommodating. So anything we want to try and do in that space, they've helped us find solutions for, and we've not really run into any roadblocks from that perspective at all.
Okay, we have got a couple of minutes to go, but only 2 minutes. So I think I've got time for one quick question, which I'm going to go back to Slido now. So I am fairly distributing where I'm taking questions on. There is a system at work here, and I will share with you afterwards some comments that people have made afterwards as well, if that's okay. But you don't have to do it over your Christmas break. So the only question I was just going to mention was that someone has said, how can FDP support local authority data, the local authority data analyst. So e.g. supporting linkage of social care, primary and secondary care data. So I'm thinking, you know, it was a PHM, public health, neighbourhoods. Let's think about how to support the neighbourhood program that was very much happening at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give a very short I don't know answer to this one.
Perfect.
So what I will say is, from a tech point of view, the capability to do it is there. It's linking data, but it's so as a platform, it could absolutely do that. There's a whole raft of questions about legality and information governance and things like that need to be worked out about whether, you know, whether organizations would be able to do that. But yeah, as a platform, I think I don't see any reason why it couldn't. Again, I'll defer to my I don't know on that one. Go talk to NHS England.
No, that's good actually, because we've just got we've hit 12. I will just share a couple of slides to finish. If you're rushing off anyway, thank you so much, Matt, for sharing that with us. I've really enjoyed the session. It was very popular today. We had like over 180 here with us. Obviously, there's going to be a few people who want to talk about things that you don't want to talk about, and that's valid as they are. We weren't talking about those today, but thank you anybody. Thank everyone for coming. If you're here for the next couple of minutes,
I'll just to partner with someone that mocks the NHS? How does it feel?
Okay, I'm sorry.
And to partner with someone that kills.
Oh, we just had a bit of trouble with sound just then. Okay, so we're going to. I'm just going to share my.
Talking about a controversial topic.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for coming to talk about a controversial topic, because it's easy not to, isn't it? It's easy not to. So just as a couple of stats here, just to finish with what 2025, what a year it was for the Midlands Analyst Network. So we have about 1,200 people in our community at the moment. We've had 22 huddles, we've had 2,300 huddle attendances. Had lots of those contributing today. I need to up that figure, obviously, and added to those popular topics must be your session today, because I think I put on there anything above 150. So you're definitely top 5 there. And my final slide here, just to remind everybody what we've got coming up in the next few huddles. So there is a gap, of course. So unless you want to join me here on Christmas Day, I mean, why wouldn't you? You might want to be doing other things. The next huddle is actually on the 8th of January, and that's strategy unit with and Lucy Morgan and others are going to be telling us about the renal model that we've developed in the strategy unit. And the next one after that, again, is strategy unit. So that's about quantifying categories of potentially mitigatable activity. That's with Sarah Lucas and Ferguson.
You've been silenced, Rachel.
She's frozen.
She's frozen. Well, we can all say Happy Christmas, everyone, can't we? And leave Rachel on her own. Thanks very much, Matt. It was a really helpful session. Thank you.
Hopefully it was helpful, and have a fantastic Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Take care.
Merry Christmas.